evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to Trillionaire Tuesday. We are so excited. You guys have tuned in to Trillionaire Tuesday. Listen, I'm in the room with Apostle Glow and with Minister Rowe out of Dallas, Texas. What's up, y'all? How y'all doing? Hey, I'm so excited. Y'all are on tonight. There's such great expectation tonight because all this month, for those who are tuning in for the first time, we've been doing Trillionaire Tuesdays all month long in November. For those who didn't know, the Village SBC has been celebrating 130 years of ministry. And part of that celebration is we've been doing financial empowerment. And so we've had some great speakers come through. And tonight we are so excited and so blessed to hear from Minister Rowe. God's been doing great things through her and everything. And so definitely she'll get into it and share it all as she is led. But listen, comment, like the page, come on and share it. Let people know we are live tonight. We're going to answer questions. If you have prayer requests later, we'll definitely want to lift up those prayer requests. But tonight is a great night to grow. So I want to encourage you tonight, grab a snack, get you a pen and paper, take some notes. There's going to be some strategies and tools released tonight for your growth. And so we are so excited about it. And so listen, I don't want to hold us up. I know why you tuned in tonight. You tuned in for one reason only, and that's to hear Minister Rowe. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Minister Rowe, and you do what you do. Be ready.
All right. All right. Good evening, everybody. Everybody who's watching, thank you for watching us live tonight. First, let me start out with a little bit of an introduction. My name is Robertson, aka Minister Rowe. I currently reside in Ovila, Texas. If you don't know where that is, that's about 25 to 30 miles south outside of Dallas, Texas. I actually work in public transit. I've been in public transit for about 34 years. I'm currently an interim assistant vice president of bus operations for DART, which is Dallas Area Rapid Transit. It's a public transit agency. I'm also a new renowned author of a book called Every Woman is a Female, but Not Every Female is a Woman. I'm also the co-founder, along with my husband, Pastor Glenn Robertson, known as Reverend G, of Sin for No One Ministry. And I'm also a fifth-time home owner. So I have some excitement and some good information I want to share with you about home ownership tonight. So let's go ahead and get started here. So let me just start out by saying that purchasing a home for me was one of the most important investments that I made in my life. And I think I purchased my first home when I was probably about 31 years old. And I'll tell you what, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I was operating out of emotions, excitement, just to own a home and to be the first out of my siblings to own a home. I was excited, but I didn't take the time to understand fully the process. I was just kind of going through the motions of it all. So, let's go ahead. I'm going to give you some tools to get started on what you need to do to acquire purchasing a home, share some of my experiences with you. So home purchasing is a long-term investment. What do I mean by long-term investment? Meaning that you won't see a return in your investment unless you actually buy the home and stay in it for a while. And it also depends on what the market is doing at the time that you purchase your home and the location of the home. And we'll get into some of that a little bit later. But I want to share with you this quote from Will Rogers. It says, "Don't wait till you buy real estate, but buy real estate and wait." And what that means is that you buy during a time where the market is flourishing and it's good. And then you stay in the home for maybe 1, 2, sometimes up to 5, maybe 6 years to see what the market is doing. And then what you want to do is you want to sell your home when the market is flourishing and you've built enough equity in your home to get a good return. So again, don't wait to buy real estate, buy real estate, and wait. So write that down. I think that's an important quote to have as if you are in pursuit of thinking about purchasing a home. So as with any other, any major decision that you make in your life, there are some disadvantages and advantages, right? And so there are some pros and some cons of home ownership. And so I want to go over a couple of those pros with you first. So the pros of buying a home is buyers build equity in the home and home value. It may increase over time if the market you buy in is getting more valuable over time. So it also depends on what the market is actually doing. If the market is at a standstill, or actually if the market is flourishing, it may be a good time to purchase a home. Again, I said it also depends on where you actually buy the home. The other thing is it gives a steady monthly fixed rate of mortgage costs, which can help you predict your monthly expenses. And what I mean by that is if you're living in an apartment or if you're renting from someone, they may tend to go up on the lease that you're in or the rent that you're in. But if you're in a fixed rate with a mortgage, you pretty much know what you're going to pay every single month. The other thing is you may be able to take advantages of mortgage insurance tax deductions. So I am in my 5th home, and so every year we have the option of filing our interest on the mortgage that we pay. So every month when you pay a mortgage, you pay to the principal and you pay to the interest. And so at the end of the year, you're going to be able to do a deduction on that interest that you pay. And there are some other tax benefits as well. A buyer has full control of the homeowner improvements and the upgrades. So when you're renting, you might have to, ask, can you paint a wall? Can you do certain things to a home that you may be renting or leasing? Whereas when you own your own home, you have full control of what type of improvements that you want to put into the home or what kind of upgrades that you want to put into the home. The other side is the cons. What is the cons of actually home ownership? The money that you need to get up front to put down to actually purchase a home or put together. It's not always easy to do that. You might have to discipline yourself and make sure that you are budgeting or being a good steward over your finances. And then also the cons is the process can be very complex. Purchasing a home, depending on if you buy a new build home or an already built home, a pre-existing home, the process overall can be very complex. It can be very stressful at times. And so there is a lot of work putting into purchasing a home. I also equate it when I'm signing, it's like signing your life away. I mean, the packet is about this thick. The next thing is typically it's a long-term investment. So you're not going to see, again, your investment in return right away. So you got to look at it as a long-term investment, not an immediate gratification of investment. And then there's a property tax and there's HOA fees, and those are the buyer's responsibility. If you don't know what a HOA fee is, a HOA fee is a homeowners association. This association helps to keep the community in good standard, helps keep the value of the home up and, looking nice in case you want to sell. You don't see old cars and broken down parked in the driveway. They require you to keep your driveway clean, pull the trash cans in at a certain time. You can't paint your house purple if you want to paint your house purple. And then there's property taxes that you are responsible for paying. And there are some special assessment taxes that are involved in those property taxes, depending on where you purchase the home. And we'll get into that a little bit later. A longer commitment will be required versus renting. So you're going to make that long-term commitment. And then the mortgage payments can be higher sometimes than the rental payments. And then also the property taxes will cost you extra over and above the expenses of your mortgage. Buyers incur any maintenance and repair costs as well. That's another con that might not be beneficial. For me, I actually live with a MacGyver, so anything that breaks down, he's able to repair everything. So that saves us some money there. So overall, I think the pros outweigh the cons, or have outweighed the cons for me. All right, so if I had to put a scripture with home purchasing or trying to buy a home, it would be faith without works is dead. So what I mean by that is that you are actually going to have to put in some work into purchasing a home. There's going to be some things that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to carry some discipline. You're going to have to, look at your finances, get your credit together. You're going to have to gather documents. There's just a whole bunch of stuff that we'll get into in the next few slides that you're going to have to actually do. And then the second scripture that I would choose is commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established, meaning that anything that you do in this home buying process should always include prayer and guidance from the Lord, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you buy a home that you shouldn't be in, or you end up with a realtor you shouldn't be working with, or you end up in just an overall bad contract in purchasing a home. And so faith produces work. So in order to produce home ownership, you're going to have faith, but you're also going to have to put in some work. And so there's going to be a few things that I'm going to mention tonight to help guide some folks in some tools and steps that they need to actually prepare to buy a home or purchase a home. One, we're going to talk about the understanding of what you can afford, the down payment and a PMI. We'll talk about the PMI in more detail. Finding a team that works for you, that's going to be your advocate, finding your home, and then working with a lender that's going to be suitable for you. And then finally get to that point where you are actually making an offer. So let's go ahead and get started on understanding what you can afford. And so it's important as you are, if you're a first-time home buyer and you're considering purchasing a home, there's some things that you want to do to understand what you can afford. And so the very first step is to understand your finances. Where are you with your finances? It's not as fun as looking at the home, but it's a very significant and imperative part in what you need to actually prepare to purchase a home. And so the lender is going to require that you gather supporting documents. They're going to ask you to answer a set of questions. What is your gross income? What do you spend each month for your bills? Do you have credit debt? And how much is actually in your savings? And I can tell you, as I've gone through the process at least 5 times, I've learned over time that, most lenders recommend that you spend no more than 28% of your monthly gross income, which is pre-tax, on your mortgage payment. And that's going to include your principal. It's going to include your interest and your taxes and your mortgage insurance. And so one of the things that is important in establishing where you are financially is knowing what your credit looks like. And of course, you all know there are 3 major credit bureaus, and there's Equifax, there's TransUnion, there's Experian. And for number D, I've actually listed a website where if you need to access your free credit reports, you can go to www.annualcreditreport.com, or you can call the number on the screen at 877-322-8228 to obtain your credit report, to see what actually is on your credit report. I think everybody should know what's on their credit report. So G and I, what we use to monitor our credit it's called Credit Karma. So CREDIT Karma, KARMA, Karma. It actually lets us know, it gives us an update every day on what our credit score looks like. If there's any fraud or fraudulent activity on the credit report, we get to see it there. So monitor your credit as you're preparing to purchase a home, and then just monitor your credit overall. So the mortgage rates is what the lender will look at closely when deciding actually what you qualify for in a mortgage loan. It's a huge role in your home buying process. And so You want to watch the mortgage rates. You want to see where the rates are. There's several ways to do that. You can go on the website and type in current mortgage interest rates. It'll tell you what it is. If anybody has purchased a home over the last 6 months, you've seen it fluctuate. It has gone up. It's trending up. It's kind of stable right now, but there was a point where the mortgage rates were at a low of 3.25. And so you want to pay attention to that as you're preparing to buy a home. There are some associated costs with purchasing a home, and that is your down payment. You're going to need some money. You're going to need some money to put down to purchase a home. There are first-time home buyers programs. There are other type of programs that are out there, but typically you're going to put down at least 3%, and generally between 5 and about 20% on your home purchase price to qualify for a mortgage. You will need to pay for the closing costs as well. And sometimes when you're in a contract, you can actually make that deal that some of that closing costs can either be paid through the seller that's selling you the home, or sometimes the actual lender has some type of program where they pay part of the closing costs. So there are some options there, but I want to go back really quick to the credit. Typically you need to have a credit score of about 620 or so to actually qualify for a home. So as you're looking at your credit score and you're looking at your credit reports, you want to kind of figure out a plan of how you're going to get that credit score up to about 620. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here to the next thing. The next thing is, what does that down payment actually look like? And so I just mentioned that typically you put down about 3%, and it can be anywhere from 5 to 20% to purchase your home. Buyers who put down less than 20%, they're required to pay what I know now as the private mortgage insurance, which is called the PMI. And the PMI is when you don't have money to put down that is in the 20% range. Anything below that, you're going to pay this private mortgage insurance cost. And so the private mortgage insurance, it is a added insurance policy that homeowners are required to pay because it protects the lender. It doesn't protect you, it protects the lender. And so it's different than homeowners insurance, where the homeowner insurance kind of gives you the protection. This one actually protects the lender. And so you're expected to pay approximately, probably somewhere between $30 to $70 per month of every $100,000 that you borrow. So if you bought a home that was $300,000 and you're going to pay $30 or up to $70 per month on each $100,000 of that $300,000. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. Let's talk about, let's give you an example of what that looks like. So here's an example of the PMI. So let's look at this over here to the left side. It's a 5% down payment. The down payment is $10,000 on a loan that's about $190,000. The mortgage type is a 30-year fixed rate. I'm going to pause right there. There are different type of mortgages and different type of rates. This is a 30-year fixed rate. You can have a variable rate. You don't want to get a variable rate. I don't know if you all recall, but back in 2008, when the market crashed, there was a lot of folks getting that variable rate, which initially your payments are really, really low. You can pay up to like $1,500 for a mortgage, but depending on how the market is and how the interest rates move within that market, your mortgage can go from $1,500 to $2,700, depending on the variable of that rate. So moving on with this example, the interest rate is 4.5 here. The monthly mortgage payment is going to equate to $962.70. principal and interest. And the PMI on this, because it's less than 5% down, it's going to be $80.75, which brings the total monthly payment to about $1,043.45. So that is an example when you don't put down the 20%. But let's move over to the right side for the example of the 20% down payment. So you have the down payment of $40,000. You have the loan amount for $160,000. There's still here a 30-year fixed rate at the same interest rate of 4.5. That brings your monthly mortgage, including principal and interest, to about $810.70. And then you look across here and there's no PMI because you put down that 20%, which brings your monthly payment to $810.70. That's excluding property taxes and insurance. You got to add that in to get the total view or look of what your monthly mortgage payment will be. All right. So the next thing you want to do is you want to find a great team. I can tell you when I first bought my home, I was very young. I was operating on excitement and emotion. I just wanted to own my first home. I didn't really pay attention to the community too much. I didn't pay attention to the fine line in the contract. I didn't pay attention to a whole lot. It was a lot of emotions and just excitement. So I didn't really, pick my real estate agent. I didn't have a criteria. I just found one and used one. I didn't care who my lender was. And so if you have not purchased a home, don't learn from me. You don't want to pick up those bad habits. You want to have a plan. You want to know who's going to be on your team and who's going to be an advocate for you when you're purchasing a home. So real estate agent, they're typically going to be your wingman between you and the seller. Their job is to help you find a home that actually meets your needs, stays within your budget. They can also provide you information about the neighborhood, the school, the property, taxes. They can provide you crime rate in the neighborhood. They can provide you with if there's any special taxes in the neighborhood, which I'll get into a little bit later. Your agent will also handle the negotiation that goes on between you and the seller. And it will make sure that no one's taking advantage of you in the situation. The lender needs to be also someone who is an advocate for you that will educate you and explain to you the whole process of what that looks like, the different mortgage options, the rates, in terms of rates. I'll give you guys an example. And so when the rates started to increase as G and I were buying the home that we're in now, what we did was we locked in an interest rate. Yes, you have to pay some money up front, but we didn't want to have to purchase a home with a high interest rate. So what we did is we locked in an interest rate that we feel we could afford when it came to the overall principal interest and the actual mortgage. And so that's another option is when you're looking and the interest rates are kind of fluctuating and going up and down, you do have an option to lock in an interest rate. Points, the lender will look at the points in the general mortgage terms that you may not be unfamiliar with. And I will say this, as you're going through the process and building your team, ask 100 questions. Even if you think they're silly questions, just ask lots and lots and lots of questions. And then once you find your home, your lender will help you understand the terms, the costs of what things look like. They will give you a preliminary breakdown. It's not the final breakdown. So you kind of have some idea of what that actually looks like in terms of what you're going to pay for a mortgage. And all of those documents are going to be necessary before you actually do the final signing. So let's go ahead and move on and let's talk about finding the right home. You want to make sure that when you're looking for a home, you take your time, know what you want. Don't be rushed into it. You don't want to have a realtor that is not an advocate for you, that's going against what you are actually looking for. So you want to be looking for, if you want to, know if you're looking for a new home, a pre-existing home. You want to, buy a home where you would actually like to live. If you're going to be in it and it's going to be a long-term investment, long-term to me means anywhere from 2 to 5 years. You also want to consider the information that you will share about the lifestyle that you want to have within that community. How's the police department in that community? How's the crime rate? Is it urban or suburban that you want to live in? Where's the proximity from your workplace? Do you have access to public transit? Some people don't drive, so you may want to purchase a home that has access to a rail system or public transit system. Is it a single family home? Is it a townhome? Is it a manufactured home? What is it that you're actually looking for? And that's something that you want to figure out prior to building your team and going through the process, so that your realtor actually knows what you want and how you communicate to the realtor, so you can she can look for things that will fit your criteria. So let's see. The next step is working with the lender. So there is what we call a pre-approval letter. And the question is, how do you get one? Well, your lender is going to tell you in this pre-approval letter. I see G put school district too. So your school district, yes, is a valuable part of what you're looking for in purchasing home if you have children. But the lender, back to this, the lender tells you the maximum amount you qualify to borrow. And so that approval letter is not your guarantee letter. So your approval letter will be based on a preliminary look at your credit to see if you meet that 620 threshold of your credit score. How much debt do you actually have? Where do you work? How much money do you make gross a year? So they're going to look at all of that, and then they're going to give you this approval letter based on those things. But it's not a loan guarantee. It doesn't guarantee that you're actually going to get the loan. And then the pre-approval letter has an expiration date. So G and I, when we got our pre-approval letter, it was only good for, I believe, 60 days. So after 60 days, if we didn't find a home, we would have to go through that process again and get another pre-approval letter. So you want to use it within the time frame that your lender gives you when you start to look for your home. There is an application process in that. So as I mentioned a few moments ago, there's an application. It's going to ask for your credit history, your work history, how are you going to make the down payment, your residential history. They want probably somewhere, they want to go 3 years, sometimes 5 years back as to where you previously lived. They want to see if you were diligent and consistent in paying your bills on time, which your mortgage, or if you owned a home before, or your rent. They want to make sure that you have a good track record in paying your mortgage. And then I stole this from Fannie Mac. So there's the 4 C's. So the capacity, and that capacity is your current and your future ability to make your payments. And then B is the capital or cash reserves, the money or savings and investments you have that you can be sold quickly for cash. And then they'll look at your collateral, the home or type of home that you would like to purchase. And then last, the credit, your history of paying bills. And I've already mentioned that, and other debts that you may have. And so once you've gone through all of that stuff, it's going to be very stressful at times. It can be exciting at times as you go through the process. Let me just share with you that, this is my 5th home that I've owned. And when I chose my team, or G and I chose the team, we actually chose a realtor who was a Christian. And the lender was an actual Christian. And so we knew that We had someone who was not only going to give us good business knowledge and information, be an advocate for us, but they were also going to pray for us through the process and bind anything that would come against us moving in the direction that God would have us go. Let me share this story with you guys really quick. So G and I, we moved to Texas 3 years ago. We purchased a home in Waxahachie, Texas. I think the home was about $312,000. We put down probably 5%, which made our loan a little less than $300,000. We sat in the home for 2 years. After 2 years, and I talk about that long-term investment, 2 years was the max that we stayed. We sold our home last year, I believe it was, late last year. And our return on investment, we sold the home for $490,000. So that was an excellent return on investment. And what we did with that is that we took that money, we invested in some other things, we paid off some bills, we set ourselves up for having a better retirement. So I think overall, purchasing a home can be a great benefit, but there are some things that you want to look out for. As we sold the home and we were preparing to build our retirement home, we went with a builder, and the builder actually, because the market was slow and because of COVID, they were slow at building and they were playing games, right? And so where we were supposed to have moved into our home August of this year, they couldn't even get the cabinets in. There was no progress on the home. And so when I say bring the Lord into your home buying process, sometimes we get ahead of him and we want, to do things without him. And so we ended up having to go back to God and pray about the situation. We walked away from that home because the Lord was showing us that it was not going to be a good investment for us and that the builders didn't have our best interest. So I want you to pay attention to the fine lines when you are buying a home. What's in the contract? Read the fine lines. Sometimes the fine lines that you don't read will get you. We lost $5,000 that we could get back, but it was worth walking away, or we would have still been waiting for that home to be built. To this day, they're still not done building that home. So you want to be careful about what type of contract you get in. Who is your builder? That's important. Who's building your home if you're buying a new built home? Make sure they're a quality builder. Do your research on the builder. Make sure you read the reviews on that builder so you understand what type of builder you're actually getting to build your home. So moving on, I've given you all those steps, right? And so you are now ready to make an offer on your home. And so as you submit your offer, once you determine your price, whatever that price range is and what your lender has given you for your pre-approval amount, your agent will draw up an offer letter of a purchase agreement. You will submit to that seller's real estate agent. And usually the offer includes the price, it includes the terms, it includes the conditions within that. It's going to include the target date, the closing date. There's a provision for certain fees that are going to be within there. In that, I don't have an example for you. And then there's a deadline to accept the offer. Usually it's between 1 to 2 days, or sometimes even 5 days. And then there are contingencies. So you want to look at what contingency might be included in your offer, or you may want to include contingencies in your offer. The appraisal. So anytime you buy a pre-existing house or a new house build, there has to be an appraisal. You should always have an appraisal of what that house appraises for within that community, in that area, and they pull the comps. The comps are what the appraiser looks at in terms of what the other houses in the community have sold for. And then there's an inspection contingency, which means that anytime you buy a pre-existing house, you want to have an inspector. And there is a cost. G and I paid about I believe 500 can be anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for an inspection on a house. But you want that inspection done because they go in and they look at your air condition. They look to make sure the water's running, the air conditioner is working, the heater is working. They take a look at all of those things. And if there's anything wrong, you can go back in that offer and you can say, hey, the inspector came up with this and they recommend that you do A, B, C, and D. It could be to replace the hot water heater. It could be to replace the sink in the kitchen. But you definitely want to have that inspection done. And on a new build house, inspection is actually necessary because the builder has to go through the city